Welcome to Notebook, a program of interest to the St. Lucie County community that features information about St. Lucie County Schools. Guests include school district and community leaders with focus on children in our community.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Notebook. This is a show where we connect you, our viewers, with organizations from around the Treasure Coast, district personnel, as well as some of our community officials. And today we have a really exciting show planned for you, and we are going to be talking and focusing on graduation. It's hard to believe that St. Lucie County is at a place where we're even talking about that already. This year has just flown by, and just lots of excitement is in the air right now, and we're really looking forward to this next hour with you to share some information that will hopefully get you connected with the upcoming events and what's going to be happening. Our guests include today Dr. Kevin Perry. We're so glad to have you, our good friend. He is the assistant to the superintendent of St. Lucie County Schools, and very different place and role for you today because usually you're in this seat.
Yes.
So we're so glad to have you.
I don't mess it
oh
up.
No, you'll be great. And along beside him we have Mr. Henry Sanabria, who is the principal at Lincoln Park Academy, and just great things happening at Lincoln Park, and we're anxious to hear about some of the things that are happening there, as well as getting ready for all of our graduation events that are coming up.
Absolutely.
Before we continue, let's find out just a little bit. I always like the guests to share just a little bit about their professional journey. How did you come to the place where you are now, and how did you decide to become a teacher, first of all, and what steps have led up to the role that you're in currently?
Well, I actually like to think that teaching chose me. I have always known that I wanted to be an educator. Even through some of the things that I participated in high school. And of course, my major, of course, was music education. I was a high school band and chorus, and at one time orchestra director. And in doing so, I felt a calling to continue to do some things in a more designated role as an administrator, to continue to help students continue to grow and have experiences that will lead to their future. I was the founding principal for Fort Pierce Magnet School of the Arts, which kept me connected to my arts family, and became the assistant to the superintendent this year, as I've been an executive director and assistant superintendent, working with teachers, working with principals, recruiting teachers for our wonderful school district as well. So it was just a culmination as from one step to the next.
Many hats that you wear.
Yeah, many hats under one title, many.
There you go, there you go. Well, Henry, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, unlike Dr. Perry, who knew he wanted to be a teacher, my desire to become an educator came a little later in life. I went into the United States Air Force straight out of high school, and I spent 21 years in the military. It wasn't until my last 5.5 years that I basically knew where my life was going to be at after that particular chapter closed. I was an instructor at one of the Air Force's Air War colleges on Fort Dix in New Jersey. And that's when I knew education was for me. And I knew that I was going to retire from that profession and become an educator when I moved down here to Florida. And I had prepped, as I like to call it, that battlefield early on by making those connections here in the Treasure Coast and St. Lucie County area. And when I arrived here in 2004, I began substituting to build my resume and to get to know the area. And then I was offered a position at Lincoln Park Academy, where I was basically born and raised as an educator. While at Lincoln Park Academy, I taught high school English. I did that for several years, and then I became the IB coordinator there. I was the IB coordinator for 2 years, and that's where I think I grew in an administrative capacity. I remember my first principal, Miss Peggy Anderson, asking me the question in my initial interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I told her, as an administrator. Wow. And truth be told, within 5 years, I became an assistant principal, and now I'm a principal. Yeah. So I left Lincoln Park Academy after 2 years as an assistant principal and was transferred to Treasure Coast High School. And that's where I actually grew the most. I really needed that comprehensive high school experience, and I gained that there at Treasure Coast High School. And then, of course, after that, I was appointed as principal of Lincoln Park Academy.
Right. And this is completing your first year.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, and lots of wonderful successes.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, great. Well, congratulations on that. And I didn't realize that you had taught English so there as well, so that I learned something new. Very good. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's coming up. And we know graduation is, there's great traditions that go behind that. There's a week of events that really lead up to, we have several graduations back to back, but some events that kind of kick things off. But some of our viewers, this may be kind of their first experience with graduation. And one of the things you as the coordinator, kind of overseeing all of those events, he's the events guy, really overseeing that, share with us maybe what can somebody expect to see in that experience of a graduation ceremony?
As we know, graduation is a very elite, pompous ceremony. It includes the faculty, the staff, district level personnel, invited guests that are all in this traditional academic regalia, beautiful academic regalia when you look at the many different colors that represent the many different degrees. It starts with a grand procession, often led by the chief marshal, which is usually the teacher of the year for that school. Once everyone is assembled, the chief marshal actually is the person that has the mace or the lead and confers that graduation ceremonies are open. During that time, you will hear beautiful music by the choruses, by the bands. You'll have wonderful speeches from students, which are generally the val and sal, valedictorian, salutatorian for those schools. Sometimes other schools may use an additional speaker. And then you will have some special awards that may be presented at that time. We actually have some students that after 13 years of school has never missed a day, and they are recognized and honored during that ceremony. And then, of course, the conferring that these students are graduates of St. Lucie Public Schools, which is done by the superintendent in conjunction with the principal of those schools. And then we start awarding the diplomas. And as an ending, students celebrate their completion by moving their tassels from one side to the other. And then there's a recessional with all the pomp and circumstance, all the crowd being excited, lots of pictures, beautiful banners that are there representing each school where students stand and can take their final photographs, and just a beautiful event to culminate basically 13 years of school for students and their new beginnings.
Right. And as soon as you hear that pomp and circumstance music, it just sets the tone for what that event is really about and just that tradition. Can you share with us, I know along the way, being in the classroom, occasionally you'll have a student that will say, I don't want to walk. I don't want to be a part of this event. And trying to get a senior to understand just the tradition and the value and why it's important to really be a part of something like that. What would you say to a student to encourage them not to miss out on what this event is going to provide for them?
I like to think that there are some rites of passages that we go through at different stages of our lives. And because many of us have different aspirations, this culmination, which is really also the end of one journey and the beginning of another, you just don't want to miss those pieces of your life's puzzle that lead you from one place to the next place. And graduation is that ceremony because many students may choose to just be completely military for the rest of their lives, to make a career out of that. And they may not have this kind of ceremony again. It's just like going to the prom. It's a rites of passage that students just should not miss. And in addition to that, we have many parents that understand, and we tell students as well, that graduation is really just not all about you, but it includes families, right, because they understand how our students are moving from one level to the other, and they're graduating, proving that they're capable, competent, and that they're prepared for whatever what next is in their life, be it college, be it a career, be it military, all of those things. And once they leave school, even in those other aspirations that they have, career opportunities, there are going to be rites of passages kinds of events that are just positive that they need to make sure that are included as a part of their life.
Right. And what a proud experience when you, as a parent, I know I've experienced it twice now with my kids, and actually 3 times, but just that feeling that you get when you watch them walk across that stage, and you know, just to know what it took to get them there and the hard work that they really put in, and what a moment that's going to be for so many.
When you look at the hard work, when you look at the dedication, when you look at the band concerts, the chorus concerts, the dance, those late nights of study and that science fair project, you begin to say it was all worth it.
Yeah.
And this is why it was
exactly.
worth it, because it leads to this,
Right.
which is the graduation and the awarding of the diplomas.
Right, exactly. And you've kind of had a unique experience too, because you've watched as a teacher, as a principal, now as an administrator, and kind of seeing it in different roles. And Henry, yours is very unique because Lincoln Park being a 6 through 12 school, you've had a chance to see students come up through middle school and through high school. Share with us what the graduation process and just watching the students from that point. Share it from a principal's perspective what this event means to you.
Well, I could certainly echo what Dr. Perry said, but also adding to that, you know, it's obviously a great milestone in our students' lives, but not just our students' lives, as was mentioned earlier, our parents' lives
Right.
too, because they also put forth some effort. You know, they helped them along the way throughout their entire 13-year educational career in some way or form. And, you know, most parents who are caring parents are there for their students all the time. Now, as a principal, especially being at Lincoln Park for the amount of time that I've been there for, I've seen this particular senior class grow from 6th grade all the way up to their senior year. And for me, that is just probably the best thing that could ever happen to a principal,
Sure.
is to watch them grow from, you know, these little 6th graders that we still would consider babies,
Right.
to these young adults who are moving on from one chapter of their life to the next chapter of their life, whether they decide to go into post-secondary education or, as Dr. Perry mentioned, the military, or maybe just go into the workforce. They are actually growing in their capacity, so to speak, to do those things that we, as an educational system, taught them to do, and to become, you know, great model citizens.
Right. And as a principal as well, you get to be up there on that stage shaking their hands. And I know when I was back at Allapattah one year for the 8th grade graduation, and I had these kids since 1st grade, and watching them walk across, I still see them in these young faces, you know, and just watching them grow and become these adults, which is, it's a neat experience.
Well, I'd like to add that, and you're absolutely right. What we did at the beginning of the year this year at Lincoln Park Academy was I had an assembly with the seniors, and we did what was called a commitment to graduate assembly.
Okay, cool.
And I shook every single one of our seniors' hands and looked them in their eyes and asked them, are you committed to graduate? And they responded, yes. And my big thing with the entire class was I want to be able to shake every single person's hand on the day of graduation, just like I did today.
That's amazing. That's very moving.
What's also really neat is when you've been in education for as long as some of us have,
Yes.
you have an opportunity to continue to celebrate with families, because there might be students that you taught or students that were at your school when you were a principal, and now you're seeing their children come through
Right.
as graduates of the system, and you're still connected with their families. So-and-so's daughter, son, you know, it's like, you taught my mom, you taught my dad, and to still be connected to families that way, making it not only just about the student who's starting another chapter in their life, but continuing to connect with families as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be a neat thing to watch as you shake their hands for that second time. What a experience for them, and to remember it. I shook your hand at the beginning, and I've shook your hand at the end. That's amazing. I love that idea. Well, let's progress a little further with the schedule. There are so many events that are coming up, but our week of events really is kicked off by an event called Baccalaureate. And this is sponsored by IRSC, I understand. And share with us, some of our viewers may not be familiar with what baccalaureate is, what it means, who can participate in it and such. So would you share with us a little bit about that?
Sure. What we have to remember is that the graduation tradition and activities are really an outgrowth of things that happen in the church system, because the church had a monopoly over education. So baccalaureate is a centuries-old religious graduation ceremony that started in England, but in the United States, it's a non-denominational kinds of service. Not as massive as commencement is, a little quieter, and it's a reflection for students, often with a public speaker that may not necessarily be clergy, as in years past when it was originated. And it's a day of reflection for students. Some people call it that instead of the word baccalaureate. But like I said, it's another rites of passage where there's music. Students give reflections from each of their schools. They may have a representative there that offers a challenge to the entire class to go out and make the world better, go out and change the world as well. But it's just as a kickoff, and we're so lucky to have our partners, Indian River State College, to sponsor that kickoff day of reflection, baccalaureate services for all of the graduates of St. Lucie Public Schools.
Right, and IRSC, like you said, is such a community sponsor of, the students as a whole within this community, and just are always there to provide support in whatever way they can. I know they just had the Young Floridians program. I know they sponsor that as well, and just some amazing things that they're doing for our students, and just a great partner. I noticed in your notes too that you have something about the word graduation, and really most people think the word graduation is an ending, when really truly it's
a beginning.
It's
a beginning. Graduation is a ceremony of great antiquity. It's, like I said earlier, it's a very pompous ceremony, and of course its customs, as I mentioned earlier, customs and costumes are actually an outgrowth of those things that were connected to the early church. If you refer to our district website, that actually has a link about graduation and connects you to all of our schools' graduation, it will tell you that rather than an ending, the commencement, both the word and the ceremony represent a beginning. It's an appropriate occasion which marks the beginning of a new phase of the student's life that propels them to whatever's next, and it's conducted very stately and very traditional. That's why we ask people to reverence what's about to happen with those students.
Right. Very exciting time. Well, Craig is going to put up our schedule to kind of show us, so people in the community can kind of pull from that a little bit. So would you like to start off? Do you have that schedule with us?
I do.
Okay. All right.
First of all, graduation ceremonies start on the 27th of May and run through the 30th of May. But as you mentioned earlier, they kick off with our baccalaureate exercises at Indian River State College at the Safety Complex, and it is a 6:30 event on Tuesday, May the 26th. Then the first graduation is on the 27th, which is Fort Pierce Westwood High School, 7 o'clock at the Adams Arena. On Thursday night, it's the Lincoln Park Academy's graduation at 7 o'clock. And on Friday at 7 o'clock, it's the Port St. Lucie High School's graduation. And then on Saturday, May the 30th, we run 3 graduation exercises. The first graduation exercise is Saturday morning, which is Treasure Coast High School at 8 o'clock. Then at 1 o'clock will be the St. Lucie West Centennial High School's graduation. And then we'll end the day with the Fort Pierce Central High School. But I need to also add that we have a performance-based preparatory academy and our Mosaic Digital Academy, which is our virtual school, and they have their very own graduation ceremonies. They don't happen in that time frame, but they happen the very next week on June the 2nd at 2 o'clock at Lincoln Park Academy. Mosaic Digital Academy will have their ceremony, and at 5 o'clock on that same day, June 2nd, will be the performance-based preparatory academy at Lincoln Park Academy. So you see that there are actually 8 graduation ceremonies. But if I may also add that we have some students that will actually finish their study of curriculum, their curriculum study in the summer. So on July 15th at 6:30 at Fort Pierce Westwood High School, we'll have our summer graduation as well. So really, we have 9 graduations between May and July. Within a span of a week, we'll do 8 of those graduations.
Now, since you had mentioned the summer school graduation, who would actually, that was one of the questions that was asked to me, who would actually participate in that particular graduation?
Seniors that are just this close to finishing their curriculum as prescribed by the state of Florida. They may be a half a credit that they have to complete or something like that. So there is a ceremony so that all of our students who have earned the right to be granted their diplomas have an opportunity to participate in graduation. We can't let them graduate early when they have not graduated. So we do our best to provide that opportunity for each and every one of our students.
And that's really unique to St. Lucie County from what I understand, because a lot of people that I know from other districts, that's not something that they provide their students. So that's a great opportunity for students still to be able to have that experience of walking across, accepting their diploma, just as their friends did, earlier in the year. So that's really amazing that St. Lucie County provides that. Well, I know several people have also asked, because when some of my friends found out that we were going to be talking about graduation, they said, the one thing I want to know is, how will my students be rehearsing for graduation? Is because my kids never let me know ahead of time what is going on, or I might get the memo, 2 or 3 days later. So how does the whole rehearsal aspect of it go, or how is that set up? Yes.
Mr. Sanabria will also tell you that once seniors are complete and they have been certified as graduates, they're invited on their campuses, and their campuses are set up just like, probably in the auditorium or in the gym, set up just like the Adams Arena will be set up, with the rows of chairs, so many deep, 14 across, and students are lined up, and they practice coming in, practice going across the stage, right there in their auditorium or in the gymnasium, complete with their line leaders, who are generally teachers, with their signs that denote what letters of the alphabet go here. Those students that may be in the top 25% or the top 10, the whole line order is rehearsed there. And then, so that they'll have an opportunity to rehearse in the arena the day of their graduation. And sometimes during the graduation week, we stagger times for them to actually go out to the Adams Arena, which is during the week of graduation. So when they complete, there'll be a day or two on their campuses, but sometimes during the week at a staggered time, they will go to the Adams Arena and do the very same thing, from walking in to going across the stage, coming back, practicing singing the alma mater, to the recessional as well.
Okay. Very good. They'll be set and ready to go. Well, I know you've mentioned Adams Arena, and that's at the St. Lucie County Fairgrounds, for those people who may not make that connection. But I know there's limited seating, so I'm sure that I know there's a ticket system that's set up. Henry, tell us a little bit about how that's handled for the senior students.
Well, at Lincoln Park Academy, the seniors receive their tickets on the first day of practice. For us, that first day will be Tuesday, May 26th, after Memorial Day. And during the course of practice, or the course of that rehearsal, the students will be checked for obligations and those kinds of things. And if they clear the obligation list, which we are working on right now as we speak, to make sure that they have no obligations, then they will be, at the end of the rehearsal, they will be provided their tickets for graduation. In the case that some students, because some students have larger families than others, they put in a request for additional tickets, and based on how many tickets are left over, and it could be because one family doesn't require 10 or 14 tickets and they turn them back into our senior sponsors, then those tickets are divided up equally and fairly amongst those students that requested additional tickets.
Well, that's nice. And I'm sure the kids are usually very good about, gosh, my family, I only have 5 people. I don't need the whole 10.
Exactly.
So I'm sure the kids are really pretty good about sharing the wealth and making sure that everybody is able to get there. Now, academically, there are so many events that lead up. I know we mentioned about Young Floridians and the awards ceremonies and things like that. As the students are starting to prepare for their collegiate experience or their military, whatever direction they decide to go. I know we're looking at a scholarship night tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Henry? I know you're going to be a part of that event this evening.
Absolutely. The scholarship for Lincoln Park Academy, the scholarship night for Lincoln Park Academy is going to take place on Tuesday, May 19th. And that's another rite of passage, if you will, for those students who have earned certain recognitions. In that case, it could be the different scholarships that they have been awarded, also being recognized as the top student in a specific subject area. And so I look at that ceremony as a seniors' night of the stars, if you will.
There you go. Yeah, that's good. And then tonight, is that the Education Foundation? Is that the scholarships for this evening?
Education Foundation is the sponsor for that event, and I think we have about 100 students or so, maybe 75 students that will be receiving different levels of scholarship during this ceremony tonight. So lots of money being given to students to continue their career. If I may go back though, Mr. Sanabria spoke about the ticket process for students. We have about somewhere close to 4,000 seats. So the number of tickets that students receive vary upon the size of their classes at their schools. I think at Lincoln Park Academy we have about 212 students that are graduating, but we have some classes that have 630 students graduating. So where Lincoln Park may be able to give their students 14 tickets, another school may be able to give their students 10 tickets because their class size is so large. But I think we do a pretty good job of basically accommodating everybody else, as Mr. Sanabria said, because I may need only 5 tickets because my grandma can't come.
Right.
And Mr. Sanabria may need an additional 2, so I'll get my 10 and give him my additional 2, or they go back for what's unused and the students can put their names on a list and divvy it out as proportionately as we possibly can.
Right. And it all seems to come together so well, when you're there at each of the graduations, especially on Saturday when they're back to back to back, but it just seems to flow and everything just comes together as it always does when Dr. Perry's in charge. So,
just like they said on the 18th, we love it when a plan comes together.
There you go.
Let's stop tweeting.
Yeah, there you go. Henry, one of the things that I was also going to ask you too is if parents aren't clear about, where are some of the places that parents could get some last minute information just about any of the graduation things?
They could call the schools, for one, but a lot of that information has been sent home with the students. We also put that information in our monthly newsletters, send it out via Sky Alert, and even make School Messenger direct connect phone calls home just to remind parents of these different things.
Right.
And in addition to that, there is a graduation website, which is located on the home page of our St. Lucie Public Schools. It has the
graduation cap
with the diploma right there, and the link, just click up right underneath it. And if you want specific information about Lincoln Park Academy or a different school, if you go to the tab where it says students, you'll see a drop down with information about all of those schools, graduation information to guide people through the graduation process with that specific site.
Right, and very easy to find. If you just go right to that open web page or website, you'll be able to find it very easy. And how early are students required to be at the graduation ceremony at Adams Ranch?
Oh, great question.
Yeah.
Students are usually at the Adams Arena an hour and a half before the ceremony, and they are allowed to come in. We don't open the gates, though, for our general public an hour only before the ceremony, but we need to make sure that students get to where they're supposed to be so they can begin their line-up procedure, their final bits of instruction. So most of the time it's an hour and a half before the ceremony, and some schools, according to where they're located in the graduation lineup, may require an hour, 45 minutes to 2 hours for students to be there. Okay. When you have those large classes of 630, it just takes more to move that many students.
Right. And speaking of moving students, traffic sometimes has become an issue. And I know in the past we've had, again, those bigger groups of student graduating classes that we've had one or two students maybe just barely make it into the to sit for ceremony just because they got caught in traffic. Is there a better direction for parents to maybe come either through Midway Road or a different access? What would be probably the easiest way for parents to get into the fairgrounds?
Well, if I live in the Port St. Lucie area, the quickest way is to go up Midway Road. But because Midway Road is only a 2-lane,
Right.
you could get backed up. So you could go down to Okeechobee. Okeechobee turns into, I think, 70 as it heads out to Okeechobee, which gives you just a little more driving room and space. And then again, it's according to what time you leave, how much time you allot yourself between the ceremonies, especially for those ceremonies that are happening on Saturday.
Yeah.
You will be allowed to come out one way, which is usually on the Midway Road side, so it may be easier for other people to get in off the Okeechobee Road side. But you have those two sites. It's hard for me to say which one is better than the other one. I just realized that there's more space on the Okeechobee 70 side.
And for a few of us that are from Fort Pierce that know those little back roads that kind of come around, that helps a little bit. But I know that's always a concern, when people are trying to get in and get their kids, in there on time. So just parents be thinking about that as you're planning your time ahead.
Well, the key is time.
Yeah.
The key is making the time to get there early enough so you don't get backed up, especially if you're taking your students in to participate in the ceremonies.
Right.
Get them there early.
Yeah, and if you're one of those people that runs late, that is one place you want to very much plan ahead for. Just make sure that you are there on plenty of time. Well, as we close the show, and we're going to, again, provide just a little bit more in-depth information, just one more time, maybe posting those dates that we'll add to the end of the show and let that run toward the end for people to have access to that. But are there any closing thoughts that if you had your graduating class here in front of you, maybe some closing thoughts that you would like to share with them? Congratulations, I know is a biggie, but just coming from a principal, what would you say if they were here with you?
Well, I think the first thing that I would say to them is keep reaching for the stars.
Yeah.
You've made it this far. It's obviously apparent that you can move forward, further.
Right.
And so don't stop here. And of course, I would congratulate each and every one of them and tell them job well done, because this is a milestone in your life, and no one could ever take that away from you.
Right. Right. Dr. Perry?
One of the things that I like to tell students every time that I'm having the opportunity to speak to them are a couple of quotes that I try to live by. The first one is by one of my favorite poets, Maya Angelou, and she said, "Pursue the things that you love to do and do them so well that people can't take their eyes off of you." And then Dr. Benjamin E. Mays said, "Whatever it is that you choose to do them so well that no man living, no man dead, and no man yet unborn can say that they did it better."
Well said. Great way to end. Well, thank you both of you for your leadership, for all that you do for the students here in St. Lucie County. We appreciate all that you do, and we're looking forward to these events coming up, and just to be able to watch these students walk across and just to celebrate in their achievement, which is just a wonderful experience for us as educators to get to see each and every year. And we just want to thank our community for watching. Thanks for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next notebook. Congratulations to the class of 2015, and we wish you the best, and keep reaching for the stars.